on YouTube. My name is Heather, and I am a novice gardener. I was looking around for information on YouTube about square foot gardening, and I kept feeling like it was advanced gardeners trying to teach me how to make a garden work. And I felt like I needed someone who was going through the pits and the peaks and the valleys of this experience. It would have been most helpful to have heard someone's experience. So I wanted to share mine. I recently decided to start a square foot garden. I'm like many of you, I work full time, I'm a parent. So gardening has appealed to me for many reasons, but I just didn't feel like it was accessible or that I had much time for it. I really wanted to give you guys a sense of how much of a novice I am. Here I have a cactus plant that I've been in charge of for 4 years. I recently decided to care about it, but under my responsibility it's sad and pretty droopy. Okay, I'd like to introduce you guys all to my new square foot garden. It was a two-person job. This is not a one-person job for me. My husband did help me do this. This is pretty much the specifications that are in the book. This is a 4 foot by 4 foot garden, 16 square feet. The book goes into a lot of detail about what's going on, and there's a lot of advanced gardeners out there who do give you a lot of specifics on building this. But just very generally speaking, cost-wise, the setup for one, including the steel trellises, which are kind of, or the steel post for the trellis, is more expensive. It was about $70 to do a box. And we went with very strong, hardy materials, new. We didn't get anything used or scrap, but you can do that to save money. A couple of features that are a little bit different than what's described in the book. My husband came up with the idea to have this rod here. And actually it's turned out to be pretty useful. It's pretty stable, and we can hang supplies and these sorts of things off. I need to kind of get nicer bags. But we find this pretty useful.
What's the black stuff?
Oh, this black stuff? Underneath each of the boxes we put some weed block, 2 layers of it. One's directly attached to the box itself, and there's another layer below. And with the residual weed block, I added shade because these are new plants, and we're in Southern California, and if you're outside at 1 o'clock you feel wilted, so I felt like our plants needed a little bit of shade. Once they get more mature and shade each other, I don't think I'll be using this, but this is actually put a lot of light through, and the plants are actually thriving.
So the $70 cost includes that?
Yeah, it does include. The voice you're hearing, by the way, is my mom, who's a novice gardener herself, so she's asking questions you might ask. But yes, all costs includes everything you see here, except for the soil. Now the soil is additional cost, and we'll get to that in a second. Well, one thing I did learn about one of my personal weaknesses in gardening is, of course, I was overexposing some of my other outdoor plants to too much sun, because last year I did try a tomato plant, it died. And also proper nourishment and proper water. I didn't understand how to make that work well. So with the shade, it does help retain the water in the bed, but the most important ingredient, and the book goes into it in detail, is the soil mix. This is a 3-ingredient soil mix, and it's called vermiculite, peat moss, and compost. Compost being the most important ingredient, actually, because that's where all the nutrients for your plants are absorbed. Now, as I'm learning all about this, one mistake I made was I should have visited all the nurseries in the area to find the compost. I ended up on Craigslist because we had everything built. I really wanted to get things in the garden, and I didn't have the proper compost. So I went ahead on Craigslist, and I found a man who actually runs some sort of garbage company, but he's connected with a business up in the middle of the state where a lot of farmers are bringing their vegetation, and it's turned into compost. I took a chance on it, put it in the beds, and it's thriving. So I think I got lucky on that. But in Mel's mix, he says to get 5 different brands of compost. I would highly recommend that because it seems to be what works for other people, but I think I have a pretty good resource in the Southern California area for this. So basically, the vermiculite, it's 3 parts. Vermiculite, 3 equal part of peat moss, and equal part of compost. Actually, my mom had told me about the fact that I shouldn't be planting my watermelon next to my cucumbers. And so that had me wondering what I should be planting next to each other. And I discovered companion planting, which is actually pretty easy to do in a square foot garden. But I'll get to that in a second. One thing I wanted to bring up was these were seedlings that I grew, and I was very proud of them because I've never gotten anything to grow before. It was at the request of my son that we plant seeds. And I just wanted to show how the Mel's mix kind of affects the growth here, because there's some interesting differences here. This is the cucumber seeds. If you want to come a little closer, my camera person. And you can see they're growing pretty good. You got a little bit more growth actually on the Mel's mix, coming definitely here on this one. So I don't know if that's any sign of the strength of the mix itself, or just the limitation of the roots in this peat pot here, but I was impressed by that. Another thing I learned is that you don't have to take this soil or this plant out of this peat pot, because I was going to do that. You just soak the peat pot and you stick it in basically into the soil. So that was actually a pretty handy thing to learn to do. Another thing I've been learning is the benefit of mulch because of water retention. I have certain squares with the mulch where cucumbers, tomatoes, I heard a mulch helps retain that water because it's so vital for them to thrive. Well, a couple things that I am kind of fumbling here with, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm noticing a few things on my plants. I noticed a few little white specks on my cucumber plants. They're growing and everything, but I don't know what that means, if that means that there's something wrong with them. Also, this bell pepper plant, it's got a little hole in it. I don't know. I'm kind of babying these things. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but in any event, we'll just kind of see what happens. I'm going to document my good things and my bad things in my garden. Another thing that is really great about the square foot gardening method is the seeding. I have different things in different stages here. I have a tomato transplant, but I also have little seedlings that I transplanted from our batch here in that corner. So I have different things coming up and maturing at different times. I have carrots, I have lettuce, and I have a little map that shows where everything is. Bell peppers. I heard that herbs are pretty good to put next to the tomatoes, so I did that. Something I'm pretty excited about here is radishes. My seedlings. Can you come over here, Mom, and look at the seedlings? So I grew 4 rows, 4x4, 16 seeds of radishes, and they're starting to sprout, so I'm pretty proud of that. My pumpkin plant's doing really well, and the watermelon are coming in. These all have to be spaced differently. So I'm also adding marigold to the garden to keep pests away naturally. I have a plant here that attracts wasps. I read somewhere that wasps would also discourage other pests from coming into the garden. So basically that's kind of the start of my gardening experience. I'm going to detail how much money this is saving me, not only how much it's costed. The total, including the soil and everything, has been probably about $270 or $280. It could probably be done cheaper, but you know, we're just kind of working with what we got here.
Explain your watering system.
My watering system. This is another really great thing Mel talks about in his book that I didn't even think of ever doing, but just keeping, I have gallons of water that are handy here, and basically he just recommends that you just always have a cup handy and you just pour one in the square. You can do this every day. Check on everything, and it's just that simple. So we also have an irrigation line that we're doing twice a week or 3 times a week, just to make sure everything's really well hydrated. But just to have this handy is just so smart and so convenient. So we've added this to our garden. And I'm also going to mulch and make it kind of pretty. I don't like the looks of it the way it is, and I'm not quite done putting my trellis up. So, and it's time for shade because it's going to be probably over 95 degrees in Southern California today. And I'll just cover it up. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time.